You have found the Redhead Family Therapy Guy and a Mic podcast, looking at mental health through a pop culture lens.
All right, here we are.
Woohoo!
We're doing one of these interviews. So if you're not picking up on what's going down with the Redhead Family Therapy Guy
And a Mic.
is that we've started a new thing, and the program schedule that we're going for is an episode where we talk about a movie with therapeutic themes or mental health themes, and then we're doing interviews.
Yes.
And so we started doing interviews. You guys got one with Kevin Shaw. If you haven't seen it, it was hilarious. It was a good time. Kevin was fantastic. And we're starting to set up. We've got another 3 or so set up. And so the plan for 2022 is you're going to get a drop every Monday, and you're going to have an episode and then an interview.
Yes.
An episode and then an interview. And then we're hoping to get regular Q&As dropping later in the week. That's our goal.
Yeah, we'd love that. So
we're shooting for.
Yeah, submitting Q&As would be
So this
helpful.
is going to fall into one of the interview series because we thought, oh, well, we want to start this programming schedule. And so I thought, well, we'll interview each other.
Oh, man.
Because we know that you want to hear about us.
I'm so scared.
You should be, because you're entering the booth with a therapist. So today is the interview series, and Michael Oliver is our subject, and I'm going to interview him. And a part of the thing is with the interviews is we're inviting people that we interview. We're going to, first part of the interview, we're just getting to know them, talk about them, hear about who they are, their life, whatever. And then what's a movie that they want to talk about? You know, what's a movie that they would enjoy talking about? So we are still, of course, going to talk about a movie.
Oh, yes.
Are we want to reveal, or are we going to hold it back?
Baby steps. Baby steps, John. Maybe we'll save it. We'll save it.
Well played. Well played.
Thank you.
Well played. Baby steps. I'm sailing. Here I am. I'm doing it.
Yeah, that's classic. That
good.
is so good.
Oh, it's so good.
Bill Murray is awesome.
Oh, he's fantastic. I am dying for us. I'm kind of bummed that we're not doing this recording soon, that we're not doing Groundhog's Day, because oh my gosh, I freaking love that movie.
Soon, everyone.
Groundhog's Day is coming. That's going to be our first show of January.
It will be awesome.
But I'm so excited about Groundhog's Day. That movie is so good. All right, sorry. All right, so Michael Oliver, I know that you grew up in the most lush and fertile environment that exists on the planet. A place I would never choose to be at for any extended period of time.
It's because you're not so smart.
Could be for other reasons. Because it's a desert. And that sounds...
So I love the heat. If anyone knows me well enough, I do not do well in cold.
You like the dry heat? You don't like...
I like any heat. I don't
You'll
care.
take a tropical rainforest.
So now I'm in Memphis, right? And it gets quite humid. The humidity doesn't bother me so much. It just feels stuffy. But it doesn't feel hot to me. It just feels stuffy. Really? Yeah.
Because when I went out to Boise a couple summers ago, we were there in July, and I remember it was warm. I want to say it was over 100. And then we stood into the shade, and I was like, wait, it's nice. It's 100 degrees up, but if you're standing in the
Vegas
shade,
doesn't work that way.
It's not that dry.
So Vegas, you can stand in the shade, it's still hot.
Well, I mean, if it's 135
it can be 2
degrees
a.m. in the morning, it's still hot, depending on the time of year.
That's when you know it's hot, when you go outside at night.
Yeah.
And it's it's still really
Well, the crazy
hot.
thing is you go down to Lake Havasu or even down to Phoenix, they're a little hotter than we are.
I've been there.
So I don't know. I've not really spent a ton of time
That was in my
down
mission.
There, so I'm not sure.
Lake
Havasu would have been, because you were California, right?
Well, it was the San Diego, California mission at the time. It's not anymore. It's in the Arizona Tucson mission now.
There's a chunk of Blythe.
Yes, I've been there.
In the Las Vegas, oh man, it's been Las Vegas East mission.
I've been there.
A chunk of that.
I've been to Needles.
There's not much there.
There's
not much in Needles either.
It was so freaking hot. Dude, our tire on our car, we were in a car one day when I was a missionary for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and it was so hot that the tire warped
Yeah.
And it was like bubbling and melting.
You get weird things in the summertime. You're supposed to crack your windows. I don't know. Maybe window technology has grown. I don't notice as much as I've gotten older. I mean, I don't live there now. It's been a year and a half since I've been in Vegas.
God bless us that you don't live there now.
But, as a kid, you always had to leave the windows down because your windows could crack. It just would get too hot. So you don't leave things in the car, they'll melt.
What was it like growing up in a desert?
Let me say this. First of all, I was born in Sacramento. So most of my family was in California, Southern California. I have some family, like my grandparents were up in Northern California on both sides. Clear Lake, Lower Lake, Sacramento, and I can't remember where my grandpa was. It was Fort something.
How far up is Sacramento? Is it like way high up?
Yeah, Sacramento is
it towards the
north.
Top?
It's like, it's towards the top. It's like, there's like that little bend thingy. It's up higher. The
bend
it's not
thingy.
Like the elbow. That's Fresno.
Is in the crux of the elbow.
The armpit of California. My family, I was born there, but my dad was in the military. He was in the Air Force. And so he was a firefighter.
In the military? Mm-hmm. That's an interesting career, to be a firefighter in the Air Force.
Yeah, so he actually was assigned, when the Challenger went up, he was assigned to, he was on the task force or whatever that would go out and get the pod in the Mediterranean. And so when I was young, we moved out to... we were
out in Florida?
Transferred to Athens, Greece. And so the Mediterranean was where the pod would drop. There's, I guess, a couple of spots where the capsule could come back down. And usually they look for warm water spots. So Mediterranean. So he was assigned, but then the Challenger, of course, had a big accident. So we were there for about 2.5, 3 years.
In Greece?
Yeah. So
how old were you?
I was maybe, I think I was a year around. I'd have to ask my mom. She'd know. But I was probably around a year.
Well, so there's no memory.
Till when my sister was born there. And she's...
for some reason in my head, your sister was older. So they're just
3.5 years. Yeah, 3.5 years younger. She's, just me and her.
Oh, wow.
And so I don't remember much about Greece. I just remember there was a big brick wall. And when I say brick, not like red brick, it's like
brick,
like old,
timey,
old like masonry, probably like hundreds of years old, right? Because it's Athens.
Yeah, it's Athens.
And so I remember that. And the only reason I remember that is that we had a neighbor that would run through kind of like the yard. They're all like communal yards, but run through the yard and just run straight up the brick. I'm sure they climbed up it, but as a little tiny kid,
looked like a superhero.
I just remember that, and that's all I remember about Athens.
Of course.
And then we came back, and he was transferred to Champaign, Illinois. Chanute Air Force Base is where we were at, and we were there until I was like 5, 6. And then he got out of the Air Force. My mom always worked usually in like daycare, or she had a home daycare in Illinois and in Vegas also. Mm-hmm. And so at 6.5, we moved to Vegas. And that's when...
did your dad get out of the military at that point then?
Yep. Yeah, he got out in Chanute at 8 years. I think he did two terms. Got out, and... we actually moved to Duluth, Minnesota. He took a job as an instructor at a brand new like
firefighting stuff?
Firefighting school, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but he was responsible for like building it, and I don't remember the details. It just was too much, and it's freezing there. So if you remember, I don't do well in cold. I wonder if my dad maybe didn't like it so much either. And Duluth is just really cold.
So so you were just there for a little bit of time and then you went back to Vegas?
I really think, we went there after Chanute, after Illinois, before we went to Vegas.
Oh, okay. So that
we were there, I remember only being there maybe a month or something.
Oh,
it wasn't long, and we were there right in the middle of the winter.
So you have this real like memory of extremes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Of like because Minnesota's like cold.
Yeah. And then
it's like cold and then bam.
Yeah.
Back down to
and then Vegas. And Vegas is what I remember. That's always been home. I was there from 6 on.
Did you guys move around a lot in Vegas, or were you like in
So
one
we lived
home?
with my aunt we lived with my aunt and my cousins. Two of my cousins she had still there. Her oldest son was gone. But
is that like relation on your mom's side?
Yeah, my mom's sister, Wanda. And we lived with Aunt Wanda and
like your dad
Paul
too?
And James were my cousins. Or they are my cousins.
Like your whole family moved in there for a while.
Yeah, my mom, dad, and my sister and I lived with my cousin Wanda for...
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, yeah, my Aunt Wanda, thank you. My Aunt Wanda for a little bit. And then we moved to an apartment and lived in that apartment in Vegas for, I don't know, 6 months. And then my parents bought a condo, and that's what I grew up in, was a condo.
So like all the years?
Yep, yeah, until...
So what age did you guys move into that house? What age were you?
6.
So from 6 till high school.
Maybe we moved to Vegas when I was 5.
6.
I think I had my 6th birthday in Vegas.
So 5 to graduate high school, you were in the, or until you moved out?
Technically not. So we moved to Green Valley, so just on the outskirts of Henderson, just right on the border of Vegas. So the outskirts of Green Valley, really, into this condo. And then when I was 14, going into my sophomore year, so 15, I don't know, whatever age you are there, my parents bought a house. And so we moved, and that was my first time ever living in a house with a yard. And I got a dog. I got a Great Dane.
Fun.
Ended up having a couple of Great Danes. And we lived in that house for the rest of high school. And
Did you move out early, though?
Yeah. So I graduated high school when I was pretty young.
Did you move out after you graduated high school?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I graduated, I think, 15 or 16. I can't remember. I think I was done when I was 15. No, I'm not that smart. I don't know.
Did you like take extra credits early?
I'm diligent. I just did stuff. I did, what was it called? I did
a fast track or something?
Yeah.
I mean, that's like 2 years early.
Shoot. I can't. Yeah, it was fast. I got it all done. It was all, I did it all. Like, they let me do self-paced.
So you graduated at age 15, and then, like, what were you doing?
Work.
You just worked?
Well, I started working when I was 13, I think was my first job. And that was under the table.
Where was your first job?
That was at the water store off Pecos.
The water store?
Yeah.
They sold water?
Yeah, we sold water. So we sold.
Well, it's the desert. I guess so.
Water. Yeah, you want filtered water in Vegas. The water's very acidic
that's hilarious.
in Vegas, and it's very hard.
It's always funny when I hear people from the West like talk about water rights and like all that kind of stuff. Because I grew up in the East, and it's like, what's that?
Yeah,
it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, you want filtered water there. I mean, you can drink the tap. I drank tap a lot growing up, but yeah, I worked in the water store.
That was the first job at 13.
Barbara, I think, was her name. Yep, that was my first like real job. I did like wash cars and stuff prior to that, but my first like actual job was at the water store just next to the Vons on Pecos and Windmill. I wanted to work at Hollywood Video, which was across the street.
Dude, Hollywood Video.
They wouldn't hire you. I think 15 is when and I was only 13.
Hollywood Video.
There.
I don't think we went to Hollywood Video. I'm trying to remember, dude. It's so funny, like, remembering the evolution of, like, VHS.
I know.
And the explosion of video stores.
Well, we went to, like, there was, like, Video Time prior to that. There was a Blockbuster, but it was further away.
Do you know how much they had to pay per video?
Back then?
Yeah, it was like $110 a copy.
Yep. It's crazy.
Do you imagine renting that out? You got to rent that out that many times to get your money back?
Yep. That's why they're $5 a rental.
I know.
So... that was, so when I graduated, I worked. I think my first job after I graduated,
full-time gig.
Was,
full-time gig when you're 15.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
16.
We're jumping a lot of time here, though. What about the years in between? So before we jump to 15, is there anything else significant? Or like, so growing up, what are your memories of that, like the fun things that you did?
So I grew up in Green Valley, grew up in a little condo. We had a pool, so I swam all the time. The pool, like community pool, right?
Yeah.
Swam all the time. I spent a lot of time with my cousins. My cousin Heidi, cousin Tim. They lived
from Yolanda?
At that time. They lived in Big Bear.
Is that from Yolanda? The Aunt Yolanda?
Wanda?
Oh, sorry, Yolanda. Wanda.
No, these were my mom's other sisters. So my mom has 4 sisters.
Was your mom
sisters
from Vegas
and 2. No. we moved to Vegas because by that time, her sister and her brother, no, two of her sisters and her brother had moved to Vegas from California.
Well, okay.
And so we moved to, it's cheaper. Vegas is significantly cheaper. It's kind of changed, but there's no state income tax. It's just cheaper all around, especially back in the 80s, a lot cheaper.
I don't think I realized that Nevada was one of the other, or is it Nevada?
Nevada.
I didn't realize that Nevada was another tax-free income state.
It is, yep. No state income tax.
It was like 7 states. But
it was still close. So like going and visiting family in Orange County or even Big Bear is like 2.5 hours. Orange County is like
it was real manageable.
3.5 to 4.5, depending.
So what do you remember from those years? Like what were the things that you played? What were the things that you did? Like what comes to mind like in your...
I played a lot outside, a lot of cartoons. I had a Sega. I had an Atari. Our first one was an Atari, and I played a lot of Pong and
really Pong?
Yeah, Pong, and I think I had Galactica and what's the Centipede? I had Centipede. I only had a few games that I can remember.
And that was on Sega?
That was on Atari.
26.
And then we got a Sega. No, maybe we got the Atari. So I had to save up money because I really wanted a Nintendo.
Dude.
And so I washed cars and saved up half. And then my parents got me a Nintendo.
Nice.
And so I remember with the Nintendo, but then my next one was a Sega. And the Sega, I think I was
never played
more
Sega.
Like 12, 13, 14, so early.
I had like one friend that had Sega, and I played it like a bit, but I didn't like Hedgehog very much. There was a game I liked a lot, though. It was one of like the fighter ones, like Street Fighter maybe, or one of those that I remember.
Street Fighter was pretty fun.
I remember we'd go over, and there was one game like I always wanted to play. He wanted to play Hedgehog. I never wanted to play Hedgehog. I was so dumb. But there was another one. It was one of those
Sonic is only
fighters.
a one-player game, so it's kind of tough.
Yeah, maybe that was why.
But I love Sonic, but I really, my cousin Tim and I, so this is my cousins, Heidi and Tim, their brother, sister, that I would visit a lot. When he would come, we would play, I think it's Madden 94, I think it was. We would play that a ton.
Football games.
And Jordan versus Bird, those two, we would play a ton on the Sega. I wish I still had them. I don't know where those
Jordan versus Bird, I had a plug-in computer to the TV.
Oh, did you?
And I would play on the keypad. And it was like totally awesome. Like the 12-bit or less graphics, like the dunk dunk.
That's awesome.
Bird would like make everything from the outside.
I had a good childhood though. Lots of fun things. I think as a kid you don't know any different. You just know what you know, right?
What was the staple like cartoon show that was like when you think of when you think of that era like in your childhood, like what was the cartoon?
Man. I mean, I loved like Tailspin was a one. Woo! Gummy Bears I watched a lot. Darkwing Duck, DuckTales, Captain Planet. What else was
Captain Planet was full of like propaganda, recycling propaganda. They would have like their little message at the end.
Yeah,
they'd have their little message at the end. It's like, that's propaganda. I think I as a kid. I was already in the conspiracy world when I was like 9.
Yeah, I'm oblivious to conspiracies, I think. I love aliens, but I'm not very in tune with.
So those like, what is that all Disney? Were those all like the after school cartoons?
Oh, well, Captain Planet I don't think is Disney.
No, but like all the other ones.
Yeah, and Carmen Sandiego I like to watch. Dude,
Carmen Sandiego. I totally remember trying to get my work done as fast as I could.
So you could watch
so we could play it. There was a game like in the back of the room. Carmen Sandiego, like where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? And if you finished your work, you could go and you could play Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, and you had to like figure out where they were. And I didn't know anything. I remember being like, Rio de Janeiro? Like, what is that? Or like all these like foreign cities, and like I was like, I don't know anything about geography, because it was like a geography game.
Oh yeah, Animaniacs. That was a big one too, which is geography, because they go through all the. They have that one episode or 2 episodes. Or they have the song where they go through all the capitals, I think, or countries and
Animaniacs. I was a huge Tailspin.
Oh yeah, Tailspin.
It's like the most ridiculous thing ever. He's like surfing out the back of a plane, but I freaking love that show.
Yeah, I remember as like a younger kid. So when we were in Illinois, 4 or 5 or so, I watched a lot of He-Man, so Masters of the Universe cartoons. I watched the real Ghostbusters cartoon.
Oh, I totally loved the Ghostbusters cartoon.
I watched those. quite a bit. But I don't remember watching those. I don't know if they just were available on the channels I had once we moved out west.
Well, that's the thing that's so crazy is like you had to set a schedule to be in front of the TV, dude.
Yes, because it was only certain times.
What a foreign concept. It's such a weird, and like that was it. Like there wasn't like they didn't have like the series even in the video stores.
After school, you watch to a certain time, and then news comes on. You're like, okay, I'm out.
I'm out. Time to go play.
Yep, I'm gone. Or homework, depending on what's going on.
That's crazy. So it was the four of you guys.
Yes,
and then.
Yeah, and we're in Vegas. Grew up in Vegas.
Did you play sports or anything? Did you have any like other besides just kid stuff, or you like playing sports with you?
When I was younger, basketball, and did a little karate just because a Karate Kid, really.
Of course,
and then high school, you killed your and track and
bonsai tree.
I did. Yes,
from episode 2.
Rest in peace, bonsai tree. And then a lot of lifting. So I threw in track and field, discus shot put, in high school, and did football in high school. I didn't really care so much for football. It was fine. I mean, it was fine.
Love for football.
But I really liked track and field. But then I graduated early, so I didn't do much in high school. I always lifted, so I did a lot of powerlifting. Did you
stay with that after you graduated high school?
Yeah, that I did into college and really enjoyed that.
Like competed?
Yeah, they have. It's not an NCAA sport.
So it's just like club sport?
Yeah, and I mean, of course, they have different federations you can compete in.
So how long after high school did you wait before you went to college?
Oh, that's a great question. I think it's funny. I remember going to junior college because I had some type of scholarship. Can't remember what it was. It was some type of like just scholarship. As long as you had a certain GPA, you got it. And I remember going to the community college, and I remember seeing other kids my age there, and they were in like a concurrent enrollment program. So they were doing high school and college together.
Right.
And I was just there because I was done with high school. So I must have been 16, 17 when I started college classes. And then I was 17, I think, when I moved out to Vegas. I just lived in these apartments right across the street from UNLV. Not the good part, sketchy part. And I don't remember what those apartments were even called. But that was, I think I was 17.
That's wild.
I was young enough that I couldn't have a lease. I remember I
remember you talked about that with the other episode.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I probably did.
You mentioned that.
That's right. I did bring that up.
So why did you move out so young?
So that
just because you were heading out to college, or was there? Did you say something about? Do I remember something about a falling out with your mom or something?
So there's like there's different things. So my dad had mental health issues. So in the military, he was diagnosed with manic depression, which is a DSM-3 diagnosis. Once DSM-4 came out, I think he was diagnosed. I don't know. I would guess bipolar 2. It might have been bipolar 1. I'm not quite. I don't know for sure.
That's
but
intense,
based on the symptomology I saw. Yeah. So growing up for me, I just thought it was normal that your dad would,
be up and down,
maybe not work for a few weeks, work from home, be in the hospital, be in bed all day long. I just thought it was normal. Like I didn't think those things. There's times where he'd go missing. And I'd have to go like stay at someone's house.
So pretty chaotic then.
I guess so. Yeah. Some of that stuff's hard to remember. You just kind of just block stuff out at times, and so.
So did you feel close to him, or was he too all over the place to really?
No, I really felt close to him. Felt understood by him. I think. I mean, you perceive things how you perceive them, right? And so that's what I remember. There's certain times like that my mom brings things up and I'm like, oh yeah, I guess I do remember that happening where I think he just was dealing with a lot and would get a little aggressive, but things that I just don't remember until my mom brings up. I'm like, oh. So I think I did have a good relationship, but I that's what I remember. But obviously I don't remember everything. So who knows? I'm sure that's what's created a lot of anxiety for me throughout my life.
Because of the lack of consistency,
I think
and that he would be manic.
Yeah. One huge fear I had growing up was I would need to provide. And I think that's why I I worked from such a young age was this fear that I need to have the capability to provide. Because
he might just be check out. He might just check out.
Yeah.
So you didn't think anything of it? I mean, you say it was normal because it's all you know. Well, sure, that's always how it is for us. I mean, I would say the same thing about some
realization came as I became a teenager. And, at church, they'd have like father and sons. And I don't remember my dad ever going. I just remember I would go with like other families. And as I got older, or like just different church things or different, like once I got to a certain age, we didn't go to church at all. But I remember at a certain age, just kind of coming to the realization, oh, wait, dads are different. Like most dads are different than this. And I think at that point I started to realize, oh, maybe there is something that my dad's dealing with.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it wasn't like a negative thing for me. It was just kind of a realization that, oh. And so I remember, I had a good friend, Kalani, him and his brother Kaleo. So Kalani was my age. Kaleo was a grade ahead of me, so older than me. And his dad was the scoutmaster. And I would hang out with their house a ton in the summers and eat. His mom would make spam musubi. Oh, I would eat it, and she would get so mad because I would eat so much of it. And she'd make macaroni salad or mac salad, and I would eat tons of that, and she just gets so upset. She wouldn't. I mean, she's very kind and loving, but you could tell she's like,
maybe you could just take one helping.
And I'm a big guy. And so I kind of started, I think, to realize at that point that there's a different way to have a family relationship, and to have a dad that wants to maybe do stuff. He was always interactive with me, though. He, that's why I powerlifted. That's why I did track. That's why I did football. That's why I did basketball. He would always take time with me. We moved around so much when I was young that by the time I think I was first or second grade, I was in different reading improvement programs. They wanted me in special education, or the teachers did, just because I just hadn't been stable enough to know anything. And so he worked a ton with me. I remember just spelling, like getting so frustrated because I'm like, I don't want to do spelling tests anymore, which really helps because by the time, I was third or fourth grade, I was starting there, like I was placed into, especially middle school, high school, placed into honors program. And I was able to graduate early. And so it really helped me a ton. So he really vested himself, I think, the best he could in his family. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where I got a lot of my desire to be close to, like, I really want to be around my family a lot. Like that recharges me to be with my girls, be with my wife. And so I think I learned some good things from him.
Were you a good older brother or were you a jerk?
No. Yeah. I think I was a jerk. Yeah. I think I tried at times, but I think, what I remember is more like my teenage years. And starting into my teenage years, I think I started to really start manifesting a lot of probably the emotional baggage that I'd probably dealt with, where I was just really kind of, I don't know, like I was caring. I've always wanted, like, I want to help people. I want to be kind and caring, but I think with my family, I just started to break down. Yeah, it got to the point, and that's what I think, kind of going to your question, what got me kicked out or got me asked to leave the house was just this, just disinterest in, I just felt like it was my dad and me, and then my mom and sister, but as my dad de-escalated quickly as I got older, probably 14, 15, 16, by 17 or 18, he had taken his own life. And so it really kind of escalated, and I felt alone. Like I felt like I didn't have anyone at that point. And so I just kind of lost interest.
Because you were kind of bonded to dad, sister was kind of bonded to mom. I imagine there was strife between mom and dad.
Big time triangulation, especially after my dad passed away. My mom and sister, I felt like always kind of against me.
So were you
and
at
that's
school?
My perception, right?
You were at school when your dad committed suicide?
I was working at UPS, and I was I was at community college, CCSN at that time.
Oh, that's hard.
And so I actually lost my UPS job because they only let you have 3 days. That's the union policy. So I was like, I went back on the 4th day, and it was just horrible.
Oh, that's awful.
And I tried to work with them. I was like, hey, is there any extenuating circumstances? I mean, it wasn't just a normal thing.
Your dad commits suicide.
No death is normal, I would say. But yeah, they wouldn't work with me, and that's fine. Nothing against UPS or anything. It's just what the rule was. So I think that started to happen. I do remember this, like when I was probably 16, and this was shortly before I got kicked out. I really got into it with my mom. So we were just arguing, yelling, probably cursing.
So this is before
I got kicked out. Before my dad passed away, yeah.
Because your dad was out. So when your dad passed away, was that like out of the blue? Did you see your dad in that kind of emotional distress?
My dad had attempted a few times. I actually, before that, had walked out. He had tried different ways. He had tried to do it. The one that affected me the most, and I think this is where I really started to turn to probably not being very kind or nice. I walked into the garage, and my dad didn't like clean up anything, but he had tried to kill himself in the car.
Oh my God.
And so there was still, like, the car was in there, window was down. There was a hose going from the exhaust to the window. And at that point, there was like the next day, my mom did something and I just kind of blew up and got really frustrated. Yeah. My dad hears this and runs in the house and just comes up to me and like I'm sitting on the chair and grabs me by the shirt and just swings at me.
Oh, freak.
And yeah, like, and my dad, so I'm a pretty strong guy. I'm kind of fat and old now, but my dad was strong too. And he didn't hit, but he got like really close. And at that point, I think that was like kind of the last part where I'm like, I just don't have anyone now. Like that's
because he didn't have your back in the conflict with mom, and then
my mom and dad were just doing the best they could, right?
No, yeah.
But in that moment, and I think I said to him, you know, I don't like. I'm sure I said some pretty bad words, but I said the gist of like, I don't care. What does it matter if you're just going to go kill yourself?
Oh.
And then my dad didn't punch me. Like he stopped, and then he went, and then he just stopped, and then I think he like dropped me and walked away.
Wow,
and
that's
then
some heavy.
And then I remember my mom saying something like, "Oh, this is like not okay" or something.
Yeah, gosh.
And I think she was referring to, okay, we need to like do something about this because this is.
So how long after that incident were you gone?
Oh man,
so probably within the year.
So yeah, it was something like I had been. It wasn't long after that.
In that time, like from that incident that like kind of, you know, had this significant stamp, from then until your dad passed away, did you feel like you were connecting with him, or did you feel like you guys had reconciled after that at all, or was it all kind of just marred from that point on?
I think you're blind at times, right? I don't remember ever feeling anything towards him.
Sure.
Like hatred or anything. I don't ever feel like I needed
to
apologize. But I'm sure there was apologize.
But I'm sure there was emotional distance, I imagine.
I think I was still PO'd at my mom. Whatever had happened between us like really PO'd me off, and I was like yelling. And so what my dad did, I think, was just I don't think I could process like even that I said, you know, why don't you go? I don't remember. So I'm sure we had some type of talk. I don't remember. We may not have ever talked about. I just don't remember after that.
But I'm just asking, like, did you feel close to him? Like, so when his death happened, you know, was it shocking because there was just this? I mean, I imagine he was escalating in his emotional health.
So there had been,
you know what I mean? And so I wonder if was you just because you were also out trying to make your way in the world. You're working a lot. I imagine dating some.
I don't think I felt close to anyone at that point.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was probably closest with my friend Danny, who ended up moving with me.
Your roommate, yeah.
Yeah. And he was like my family at that point.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I cared about my family,
of course, yeah.
and would be there if I could for them. But once my dad died, I remember my mom calling me and saying, "Hey, your dad didn't come home." And I was like, "Okay, should I come over?" And I think she said yes. And then I remember he called, and I can't remember if it was that night or the next morning. He called, and I said, "Hey." I said something like, "Hey, Dad, what's going on?" And he's like, "Oh, can I talk to your mom?" And I think I was like, "Okay."
That was the last time.
Yeah.
Oh.
And then he never came home. And that's always ate away at me because I always think like I should have just told him, "Hey, I love you. You can come home."
Yeah.
Like maybe he just needed to hear that, right? But you always, when something traumatic like that happens, you always take accountability. You always take blame.
You always think it's your fault.
And so that's something that always bothered me. But as far as like connection, I don't know.
Well, I imagine your dad was not in a good place. I mean, if he was attempting...
No, he wasn't my dad at a certain point. It just felt different.
Yeah, he just was gone.
Yeah. And so when
the loss was already there.
Yeah, when he passed away, it was like I lost a friend, but almost like an old friend. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
like
does.
Like someone that I was really close with, but we just hadn't really kind of done much for
a while. Yeah.
So it was still sad.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think I cried until the actual funeral. Like it was probably a week.
Wow.
And I think for a long time I was just doing what people asked me to do.
Right.
So I think I was at home for a little bit, and then I ended up moving back home.
After his death?
Yeah. Me and Danny both. And that lasted like a month, and then I was asked to leave again.
Yeah, it's just too much stress.
Yeah, that's too much for my mom, too much for us, for me, for Danny, for my sister, I'm sure. And so that didn't last long, and then I was out again.
And were you at school at this point, or this pre-college?
No,
college?
That's college.
That's college.
Yeah, that's all college. 18. I was 18.
Oh, right.
17,
okay.
18, yeah.
So then how much college did you do?
Like when, like from, well, I have like.
No, I'm sorry, that wasn't clear. Because I already know that you went on a mission.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think I'm thinking.
So yeah, I did end up serving a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We didn't go to church hardly ever, probably from like 11 till I was like 18.
So you started going back at like on your own.
After my dad passed away, my mom needed help. That's part of the reason I moved back, because I thought I could help, but I'm just a kid. I can't do anything to help really. But
yeah.
The members of the church helped a ton, and that really piqued my interest. And prior to my dad passing away, I'd even been thinking, like, I wonder if I can serve like a mission, because I always had this kind of, I just like to help people. I like to be kind. And that was my thought, is like, well, you can help people that way. I didn't really conceptualize. I didn't understand the purpose of that, but I knew that I could help in some way. And so I remember asking my mom or my dad, can I do that? Because I hadn't been to church forever, so I just figured I wasn't allowed to.
Yeah.
And that was, I think, not long before my dad took his life. And then after the funeral, I just started going back.
Wow.
On my own. So I went back. I'd worked on Sundays, and so church was a bit difficult. I had to kind of make some sacrifices. And then I shortly decided, I did want to be able to serve mission. So that's a whole story in of itself. Had to do some, getting testimony and getting back on track with stuff.
And you didn't meet your wife before. Did you meet your wife before your mission?
So Heather and I, no, we met at a birthday party where a friend from church had brought her, a friend that I grew up with.
Was this after you went on a mission? Or
it
before?
was. It was after. But we did go to the same.
So how much college did you have done at this point?
When I came back,
did you have like 3 years?
I think I was like a junior or something.
Okay. So then you paused, you went.
I think I was done with my master's degree when I was 24 or 25.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so that's why I have as many years as I do post-master's, and I'm still only 38 or,
Right.
I just the way it worked out.
Yeah.
And so, I think I was like a junior. And then after I came back from serving as a missionary, I went transferred to UNLV and finished up at UNLV.
When did you decide?
67.
When did you decide social work?
Okay, so I jumped around a lot. I have a lot of interest. So I was in biology. I was thinking I wanted to be maybe a medical doctor or a nurse practitioner. At one point, I was thinking like a nurse anesthetist. And then I started in civil engineering. And then
you studied history somewhere along the way.
Yeah, history is where I wound up. History is what I got my undergraduate degree in, because I was planning to go to law school.
You knew that would be useful.
Yeah. I was studying to take the LSAT, was preparing for law school, and it was in my senior year, like right before my last semester, that I started to be exposed to social workers at the public defender's office. And I then, at that point, I think my line of logic at that point was, they work less and I want to work less so I can have more time with my family.
Oh.
And they work less than the lawyers. And so my thought was, and this was a naive perspective, right? I wasn't working. I was just seeing things, right? I'm just a student. And so that was my line of logic was, I think social work can be a route for me to where I can find stability, but have good balance between home and work life. And then, and it's decent, right? The job that we have is decent. There's worse. And there's understanding with who we work for and family, which is really important to me.
For sure.
But that's the reason I switched initially. But the reason I had those different professions, except for
that's a lot of
is that I really wanted to be. I wanted to be in a position like a helping profession.
Yeah, that's a pretty like left turn from.
Yeah,
I mean
that's how I am though.
You're thinking law and then social work.
Yep,
it's like lawyers aren't typically built like.
Well, the crazy thing is, so of course I got waitlisted when I applied. Because I'm coming from history. Well, when I applied for social work, for graduate school in social work, because...
Was it competitive?
Yeah. I mean, it was competitive enough that there was a wait list.
Oh, that's wild.
And not everyone was accepted. And so, and UNLV's, I feel like it's a pretty good school. It's a school of social work. It's not a department or anything. But, so I was waitlisted, and I think that's because on my application, I'm like, well, I have a history degree. And then no applicable experience, which I actually did because I went in and talked to the director, and she was like, oh, no. She asked me what type of jobs I'd had. She's like, well, no, that's experience. I just didn't know because I didn't know, right? And so I ended up getting accepted, and then I started to, through that program, really started to understand what social workers can do. Like there's just so much.
Yeah, there's a wide range.
It's not just case management, especially on the once you get the advanced licensure side, you're a therapist, right? So there's all this clinical work, psychology work. And then I kind of gravitated into the psychology side, the clinical side of working with people.
Well, that's cool.
And that was through my practicums in school.
At that point, did you know you wanted to do clinical?
I knew I didn't want to do private practice. I wanted to work for either a government or state agency, once again, because it's stable.
Because you wanted to make a lot of money.
So here's the thing. Growing up, it was always worrisome to me about having stability.
So was your mom at home, or did she work a lot because
she did home daycare?
Because you mentioned that early on, but I didn't know if that carried through all the years.
Yep, she did it all the years until I was in like high school. Then she worked for Venetian for a little while in reservations. And she almost always worked until my dad passed away, and then she didn't work for, I don't know, 5-10 years or something.
So there was a lot of distress then.
For me, from my perspective, there was. I feel like our family was very stable. I feel like I was spoiled a lot. So I don't think there was any reason for me to feel that way besides, I think my mom would have stepped up, and she did, of course, step up, but she would have stepped up further even and gotten a second job or something just so we were okay if she needed to. But from my perspective as a kid, I just was fearful.
Right. There was that economic distress. Well, you had to sense that dad wasn't doing well.
Yeah.
That it wasn't consistent. And so it's like this idea of stability.
Yeah.
So that idea of stability was everything that was driving what you were trying to do.
That was driving me. Secondary to, I wanted to do something where I could serve. So even being a teacher was, and still is, a very interesting thing. I would love to teach, and that's why I went on and I did some doctoral work. I just didn't finish. But anyways,
I didn't know you started a doctoral program for history?
No, I did a doctoral I did a doctoral program in like organizational management. It's like a policy type. I really, so history, right? So it kind of gets me back to like research. I love research. I love policy. Policy is interesting to me.
No, it's not.
But
was it cutting edge back then?
Oh, extremely cutting edge. I did some doctoral, but then once with the church, there's just no point. Sorry, let me correct. With my current position, I just didn't see a point to continue on because I didn't see how it would benefit me. And it was a lot of work and family and stuff. So I stopped. But I have always thought it would be cool to teach. And honestly, I would teach. I think any grade. I don't know. I think teaching would be, but I wanted to help, but then also I wanted security. And so I always looked towards like government agencies, and then the agency we work for is extremely secure. And I think that's how I ended up here. But I think, there's definitely, I believe in, being guided and listening to promptings. And I feel like I've always been blessed to be guided towards things that I need, even not knowing that that's what I need in my life. And so this job, I get security, but also it's been a blessing because I do something where I feel like I can
do something meaningful all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a very service-oriented
We do. And that's huge for me. And it's healing to me to be able to feel like I can serve and give back when I feel incapable a lot of the times.
So in our friendship, I haven't heard you talk much. I mean, I think I barely had I think it was, I don't remember you telling me like in a dramatic way that your dad had passed away. It was just like this
I don't really
piece of information that like, I was like, oh yeah, I did it. And I was like, and then I think somewhere along there it was suicide. And I didn't pick, I don't know why, because I usually do. But, so do you feel like, excuse me, do you feel like, is that like a thing that you made sense of over those years of pursuing your graduate work and like in your family, is that loss issues still, because it sounds like there was a lot of conflict and fallout with the family. Like, do you feel like that's been, is that still
I think for
a prickly
years,
jade that still exists
hard.
with mom and your, I don't know how much you want to talk about that, but like, I guess what I'm asking is like, does that feel resolved, or does there feel things like that are still
I think for
out
years,
there with your dad
and especially after getting married for years, I think I felt like I wasn't a part of, I wasn't lovable, I wasn't enough. I felt resentment, hurt. But I've gotten to the place where I do firmly believe that my dad did the best with the circumstances that he was in, and my mom did also. And that has been healing to me. Now, there's still times when I interact with my mom or my sister and I get triggered and I might get frustrated with them. But I realize that's not them being bad or wrong. That's just me getting triggered, and I'll remind myself they're doing the best that they're doing what they can with what they have. And that's great. That's nothing to poo-poo upon.
Right.
And so I think that I'm at a place, where I don't talk to my mom or sister all that much, but I love them dearly. And I try to be there for them. And if they reach out to me, I'll respond. And sometimes I reach out to them, but also I don't live in Vegas, and they're in Vegas. And so that creates some distance.
And are they still tight?
Yeah, they live together. I think my sister has a lot of medical conditions. I don't know all of them. She has diabetes is really bad with her, and she's been in hospital DK multiple times. And she has some pretty severe mental health issues. And so I think, that's one thing I do worry about. Like if my mom passes away, what will, I want my sister to be okay, right? I want her to, and she's a great lady, and she's competent, but she's got a lot of health issues going on.
So then your attention has been turned towards that sense of security, building your marriage, building your young family.
Yeah. So I think for me, when I met Heather, it was a family again. Like she became really, for me, a healing point to see that, hey, I can have a family. I don't have to feel like I've lost something, but that I can have that again. And I think that and Heather, being so patient and understanding has really allowed me to heal to the point where I don't have resentment or anger. I used to, like, if you used to ask me some of the stories that I experienced with like my mom and some of the things she did, I would get like heated and upset, but I don't, like, now it doesn't I can talk about it. It's not bothersome. And like with my dad, I don't, well, maybe there's still some issue. I don't really ever talk about it. I'll just say my dad passed away if anyone asks, but I don't really get into details on it. But I think that for me, meeting Heather and then her family also, like her mom and her dad, like when her mom passed away a few years back, that was like hard because it was like she was like a mom to me.
Oh, so you really felt taken in by her family.
Yeah.
Taken in.
Yeah. And I'll feel sad when my mom passes away too, because my mom's still a mom, and I love her and she's always in her heart done everything she can to be a great mom. And she is. But I think that at that point when I felt like I didn't have my mom, I feel like Heather and her parents kind of stepped in. And that really drew me close to them, and that made it hard when she passed away.
Gave you a foundation, a place to land.
Yes, yeah,
that's cool, man. That's really cool. So this relates to the movie you picked.
I don't know how it relates, but I just like the movie.
But you like the movie.
I always have. What About Bob for me is always
baby
been,
steps.
Yes, it's always been awesome.
Steps.
Bill Murray is just
so
good, and he's so lovable.
He's so likable.
Yes, right. It's amazing how he plays this side, the neurotic, like we were talking about, like kind of borderline, but then he's so lovable.
Yeah, there's no borderline in real life that's as lovable as Bill Murray is in that movie. I mean, he's definitely borderline personality disorder, but it's all the good juju-y side of that lovey innocent. But he just and that's why the movie plays so well, because it's like, what about Bob?
Well, and as I've gotten older and the longer I've been a therapist, I'm not a psychiatrist. Psychiatrist prescribes, right? But the older I've gotten, when I watch and I see like Dr. Marvin and just kind of how he is in the beginning, it just makes me crack up. And I'm just like, and he is a psychiatrist, so we have to be fair here. There is a difference.
But I always, if you ask Nicola, I always gristle, and I'm sure it's probably this way for any professional, how they're portrayed in movies.
Yeah.
Like how therapists are portrayed in movies, makes me insane. You know what I mean? I feel like there was one movie or TV show not so recently that my wife and I watched, and I was like, finally, somebody got it right.
Genuine,
it felt right.
Or realistic.
Or more of what's we're trying to help or what's trying to go on, because there's always a mockery, right, of therapists and the self-important or narcissistic.
I love Dr. Leo Marvin. You meet him. Oh, this first scene is just so beautiful. So he sits down, he puts his fingers on his face, and he just stares. He doesn't say anything. He just stares at Bob. And I love it. It's just so
That's
classic.
How I start my sessions.
Yeah, behind my desk. I sit behind my desk and stare. And then afterwards I get up and I go and I kneel across my bust, right? My very nice bust. And then my favorite part is I typically look at my bookshelf full of my book. And then I say, there's this book.
Oh,
what? Here it is.
It's like 20 copies. Baby steps.
It's so awesome.
It's hilarious. It's so fantastic. But yeah, so once I see a therapist behind a desk,
yes,
I'm always like, has anybody that writes movies actually gone to a good therapist? Because if you're a therapist sitting behind a desk, I'm sorry, you're not like that.
There have been some times
that they're not a good therapist
where you use the desk, and I have used the desk at different times, and it depends on who's in the room, how many are in the room,
never used the desk.
You haven't? I've used the desk. No. Like if I'm playing games, I've used my desk.
Oh,
before.
well, I suppose if you're at a table with a youth or something like that. Yeah, but no,
I've had offices where I haven't had room to have a table, so I just go to my desk. I'm like, hey, let's play. Mm-hmm. It depends on circumstances, but the norm is I'm with them.
Yeah, I'm
not hiding behind something.
My desk is in the corner of my room. I can't. I turn and then I.
Yeah, you wouldn't be able to play a game on your office setup.
No,
you'd have to have a table. But you your office is a decent size.
Yeah, it is a decent.
I've been in some small ones in my day.
Yeah. So that part just gristled me right off, but it's fantastic
it is.
Because of the mockery, which is fine. I'm fine for.
Now, have you ever been to a psychiatrist?
Yes, I have. When I was in college, I went twice, and I think both times they were behind desks.
So I've been to a handful of psychiatrists, especially growing up with my dad.
Yeah.
And I'll say this. It's been a long time since I've been to one, but I remember it feeling not as it felt colder than what I remember therapy feeling. And I've been a therapist all throughout my life.
Well, and I think that's it. I think,
but
I don't know if people understand the different,
I don't think people typically do.
That a psychiatrist is a doctor, and typically in our day and age, no hate on psychiatrists, they are, they're going to approach the mental health issues with a pharmacological solution.
And understand this too. The thing is that malpractice insurance typically is quite high for a psychiatrist. And so because of that, and because of just wanting to make good money, it's not worth a psychiatrist's time to do therapy. When they can do a 15-minute med-eval and get paid the same as an hour session or a 50-minute session, they're not going to do the talk therapy. They're just going to do the medication evaluation. They're going to move to the next client. It's short, it's brief, it's medication evaluation, and that's it.
Well, and they're doctors. And so, and doctors,
and they're trained more in the pharmacology side. I would think, I don't know. I'm not a psychiatrist. But the thing is, when you go to therapy, it's for therapy.
Yes.
And so I
so
think
you
that's
don't
important.
Typically, I think there probably are psychiatrists out there that do therapy.
Yeah.
But primarily,
it's not the norm.
That's not what they're going to do. So you're going to get either LMFTs, LCSWs, LPCs are those of us, or clinical psychologists that are going to sit down and do the therapeutic process.
Yeah.
So it's so funny.
So it's an interesting dichotomy because they have, and that was more on par for the time period of the movie too. Where you would back in the 80s. Excuse me, you would have psychiatrists that
were doing
therapy. Talk therapy also.
Yeah, that model has gone away.
But even then, you notice how short that appointment was.
Yeah, totally was.
Actual time, it might be a 10-minute scene maybe.
Right.
But so
Bob, what else made you pick this movie? So what was it about this movie?
For me, there's a couple of things. With Bob, he's definitely got some like agoraphobia or something. He's got some anxiety, right?
Doesn't want to leave the house.
And so I don't know that I ever don't want to leave the house. I'm completely fine to stay at home. Like, honestly, I'm good to just be at home with my family. I do like to get outside though. But for him, the anxiety, definitely anxiety, fear for me, fear of inadequacy, fear of being enough, fear of people, like, why would someone want to love me or want me, like those types of fears scattered throughout my life. So identified with his fear, and then to move on from that, definitely identified with his desire to connect. And it's such a beautiful thing to me. And what about Bob? He goes from lonely to and really just kind of broken to connecting, building relationships, and becoming more of a full person where the fear just vanishes. And I love the scene when he's jumping on the beds, having fun. Then he lays down, he finds the tissues.
And he throws it out.
And he throws that to me is beautiful. That to me meant
nice
so
scene.
much.
I don't know if that's really possible with Borderlines, but it's a great moment.
Yeah, it is a movie. They're mixing some stuff up.
They are mixing stuff up.
But I love the idea of connection can heal fear. And that to me has always been so meaningful in my life because I have so much fear. And connection's been hard for me because I've just had traumas throughout my life. And so something Heather and I have tried to work on is connection, and me knowing that she loves me even though I don't feel like I'm lovable. And knowing that my daughters care about me even though I don't understand why they would. And that builds hope, right? That builds safety, that builds
so that idea of being like taken in, because of course Dr. Leo's family becomes enthralled with what about Bob, because he's so innocent and so playful and so naive and so unassuming, you know what I mean? And it's really fantastic too, because legitimate borderlines do make you feel crazy, right? Which is what you see, and the Dr. Leo's character arc is pretty destructive, but like that sense of feeling crazy and feeling like you can't get away and feel like you're going to be suffocated and trying to make boundaries, wanting to be on vacation, and all this stuff is exactly what borderlines do. They just like wiggle through and manipulate.
It is. It's the walking on eggshells thing, right?
Yeah.
You're constantly are kind of on edge, and that on edgeness gets you to the point where you feel crazy.
Yeah.
Right? You
well,
feel
the
like
on
there's
edge,
something wrong.
and also the idea that you can't like have boundaries. You can't get away.
Yeah.
Right? Because the borderline is someone that doesn't have secure attachment.
Yeah.
So there can never be a distance that just feels healthy and okay because they want to physically or emotionally manipulate to stay as attached as they can because there is no object permanence is what we called it in human development, right? That you can maintain the idea of attachment when you're away from the thing, right?
Yeah.
Which is why children have pacifiers or blankets or teddy bears and things that they hold, because as they are going out into the world and negotiating the space, they're moving away from the object of safety and protection and love and food, that being the mother typically. And so they're wandering away, and so they start to have the pacifier or the ball or whatever, the blanket, because that's an object that they can take with them that then becomes the affirmation of the remembrance, right? Because the other development stage that it's important to understand as part of this is peekaboo, right? Peekaboo works because little children, when you cover, like you literally don't exist. And so the fact that you show back up is fascinating to them because you don't exist, because that part of the natural development in the brain hasn't happened yet.
How powerful is what you just said too when it comes to shame?
Yeah.
You'll notice when someone is in shame, they can't make eye contact.
Yeah, absolutely not.
And you just said when to that child, when you cover the eyes, you don't exist.
Right.
And how relative that is to shame and eye contact.
Yeah.
And how drawing someone's eye contact to you when they're in shame can be the start to healing.
To help bring them back.
Really interesting?
It's really,
how it
really
really
interesting.
goes back to
just
really childhood development and some of the really fundamentals of who we are and what we experience throughout life. I love and they feed the borderline perfectly.
They do such a great job.
The restaurant, the cafe owners, I can't remember what their name is.
Oh yeah.
But the ones that give them they give Bob the water jug for Gil, right? They're like, here, and then all
we know
time,
where he lives,
and she's always like, son of a. Or whatever she says, and then she never says that.
I know, it's hilarious. She's not like that. She doesn't get like that. I love they're always in the boat off the bay,
even in the pitch. Like there was a pitch
in the midnight
scene, and they're out in the lake,
and they're like cheering that the house blew up because it was the house they wanted.
And it's like the perfect feed into the borderline, right? It's
they do such a great job in the first half to 3/4 of that movie, really. Where Bob is always like showing up and there and just kind of in his neediness. And I love that the family just is sucked into it because they're like, oh, he's just this guy. And I remember in
the beginning they're like unsure, right?
Right.
And then,
but he's so nice. He's so innocent.
He's so childlike.
Yeah,
right?
That's it. He's just so innocent and childlike, exactly as so they're.
But there's moments when you question that, like when there was the moment when she said you need to leave.
That's where the first negative aspect of the borderline comes out.
Yeah.
This is where borderlines go crazy is once you make a boundary with them and you want to be firm in that, right? Because they are more connected to Dr. Leo than they are to Bob. And so they're like, okay, Bob, you're clearly escalating our husband, our dad and my husband. And so, you need to go.
And his response is, really?
Really?
I wish I could do his voice because it's so classic.
Right. So
that's really?
That's where you see the first. And so that's where borderline's crazy comes out is when you try to make boundaries with them.
And here's what I really just jumps out to me is you notice this real quick moment and then it's gone. Did you notice that?
With
it
Bill
didn't
Murray?
last. Yeah.
Well, that's because that's because he's able to get what he wants. So he manipulates them and he's back in, and so then it's gone. It's only they only become.
Well, he still leaves though. Like he still leaves the house.
No, there's some, but but it's like it's compromised though. No, like he still manipulates and gets some aspect. Like he opens the door back up and he's nice again.
Yeah,
but then
he still
leaves.
He's
not left because Dr. What's-His-Bucket comes down and takes him. That's why. Isn't that what happens? Doesn't Dr. Leo come down? Because that's when they get in the car and he goes and he gets the bomb stuff and he's going to blow him up in the...
Oh, it might be.
So Bob got what he wanted because he manipulated his way back in.
Okay.
If I'm remembering it right in the story. So it's like
it could be. I can't remember now.
Yeah, I feel like he got what he wanted. He did not leave willingly. Like, he didn't just leave willingly. The only times he did that was like at night when he came, then he would like show back up the next day or whatever.
Yeah.
Those are the only times, But other than that, he's always wiggling his way in to try to get the attachment, right?
Yeah.
Which is interesting because, and the movie sells it like in the end scene, like he had developed healthiness, right? Because he like marries Dr. Leo's sister or whatever, and becomes a psychologist, which is fantastic.
What I love, and then
fantastic commentary.
Dr. Marvin suing him for the rights of the story, the death therapy or whatever.
The death intervention, or what is that? What it was?
I can't remember, or something like that. Something like that.
Well, that's like that.
But I love the very end when when they say, "Does anyone have anything that?" What is
to object?
Object.
Is there anyone that would like to object? He's like,
and then he's like, ah, and then he's like back.
Yeah, then he's back.
And then he's like with Bob. He's like, whatever.
Yeah, he becomes completely catatonic.
Yeah,
from the stress and the duress, because this moment that he wanted on Good Morning America, that's going to launch his book, becomes the What About Bob show. And he locks up and like is incapable of being engaging.
But I love
fear and
for me, what I've always seen, and the meaning that I've taken from this movie is that fear, right? Fear can be dispelled. Fear can be healed through connection.
That's a great point.
With others. And I feel like for me, I see someone who is ruled by fear, and then at the end, he's doing things that he would never have done. And that's what I take. But there's so much to it. But as I've gotten older, and especially as I've become more clinically minded and understanding, I have a different, I definitely see the borderline, right? I definitely see these idiosyncrasies. And
I love
and it's
the
definitely
scene.
Interesting.
I love the scene where Dreyfuss's character is emotionally breaking down at the party, and the friend, I assume it's a friend or a doctor that he knows, is like making a prescription suggestion, and Bob questions it.
Oh, that's right.
Bob questions it
afterwards. That's when they're up in his room, right? And the doctor is there,
right? And he's Bob, like, "Well, wouldn't this maybe be better?" And he's like, "That is a good idea." I thought that was fantastic.
So my buddy
totally becomes like anger, like just what's the word?
That whole scene is just classic.
So
where he's literally like on the brink of going psychotic, and he's just he's covered in mud, right?
Yeah.
He looks horrible.
He's totally he's broken. He's like emotionally broken.
And Richard Dreyfuss plays it so well.
He's so broken.
He comes to this party, and then you see him kind of come out of it
for a second,
and then he sees Bob.
Yeah, Bob shows up, and then he breaks again.
Has always been so funny to me. They show him just like freak out and jump, and this is probably not funny to anyone else besides me and my friend Danny. But
Superman's
they show him, and he's jumping at like 3 different angles. They show it, so he's like hilarious. First jumping like this, and then he's Superman, and then
it's fantastic.
Just that scene is so funny to me, and how his facial expressions. But I love it
that Bob is infiltrated every aspect of his life and taken everything over. It's like, oh, I'm being celebrated by my people, but he's still here.
And then Leo is inpatient, right?
Yes.
Then he's inpatient, which is so funny. Yeah. And it's so funny how
it's hilarious because the dichotomy of like he tried to check Bob in, because clearly if Bob gets evaluated, his peers are going to see that he's borderline and needs to be institutionalized.
Which is movie, right?
Yeah,
that's what's so funny about it. And the fact that he could check him in for that, right? It doesn't quite work that way.
No, that's not the reason why you can involuntarily.
There has to be safety issues there. But it's I love how, just going back to the beginning, when the psychiatrist friend calls Dr. Marvin. And Dr. Marvin's on, I think, the phone with his wife, right? And he's like, "Hey, I have Good Morning America is coming to film," and then the receptionist buzzes in and it's like, "Hey, there's this guy, this doctor on the phone for you with a referral."
Oh yeah.
And Dr. Marvin's like, "They come out of the word work when you're like awesome," or whatever he says.
Yeah.
And then it's this doctor kind of just just saying, "Hey, I need you to take this," and then you see
him
like,
up. He's packing up
so
his office. He's like gonna leave because clearly Bob has been.
It's just complete relief when you see that Dr. Marvin has taken him, and just some of the things that doctor says, that just
like
crack you up.
He's passing on the amoeba, so he doesn't have to have his life force sucked out of him anymore. And then you have
Dr. Marvin, just this really conceited guy that's just like, I can fit him in after Labor Day. And that's another thing that as I've gotten older that I didn't realize when I was a kid, because you have summer breaks, right? When you're a kid, it's like you live it up. Mm-hmm. But when I watched this movie the other day, I sat and I had to pause it, I think, at one point and just sit there for a minute and think, did he just say he's going to be gone for a month?
I want to go on a month vacation.
I was like, man, that is amazing. And it just shows how busy things get, how hard, right, you have to work, and how taking a month off.
I need to take
a month off. Yeah, it's like how I don't know how to do that. I don't know how how would my office run if I wasn't there?
It would run just fine.
That's the idea, right? But how?
Because
things would be fine.
Well,
right?
Yeah, because things would be fine. And it's like, they were all fine before you were there. I mean, the place and location you were didn't exist.
And go to Lake Winnipesaukee.
That's right. He's all like, because it's like all up in, I love too, and I guess because he's a psychiatrist, it's like he's rich, but it's like us therapists aren't rich.
Yes.
But psychiatrists, I suppose, maybe because they're doctors. Because it's like Martha's Vineyard, right? Like,
it's like a ritzy area.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've not really been to East Coast. I don't think I've ever actually been to East Coast Ocean, which I need to.
What?
Yeah, I need to do. I just recently went to the Gulf Coast. I grew up on Pacific, right?
Bro.
So we go to
all right, we
Huntington,
seriously, need to do a bike trip.
Oh, yeah.
And we need to go. We should do North Carolina, north to, or south to north.
Be fun.
And we should do it up like the Outer Banks.
Let's do it.
That would
we
be
could
so
podcast
fun.
Some of it, maybe.
Dude.
That'd be fun.
We could take not a month off.
We could just do a month. So
that's a good idea. Seriously, though. Seriously, we're gonna do a bike trip, and we should do like North and South Carolina, and we'll do the coasts.
Yeah.
And we'll totally record
as
we do it.
Really fun.
That'd be seriously
beautiful
fun
too.
That part of the country is really pretty.
So another part that really stood out to me is Bob. This is still earlier on, right? When Bob is really struggling, he's trying to, he's manipulated his way to like Winnipesaukee. Right, this is the borderline coming out hardcore. He's gotten his way all the way,
where he lies to the receptionist. Is it Peggy or something?
Yeah,
she's like, I know where he's at.
Yeah, it's something like that.
He shows his medical badge,
and it's just like a drawing, like it's just a symbol. It's like nothing.
It's like a doctor symbol,
but it's so awesome.
And he's like a detective.
Yeah,
that's like,
and so he gets his way all the way to like Winnipesaukee, and he meets with Dr. Leo Marvin, and it doesn't go
before you go there. I love it when he gets off the bus and everybody cheers.
Yeah, because he's still like
sucking the life out of everyone.
He's still really agoraphobic at that point. Like they're mixing agoraphobia with the borderline, which is fine. You could have both, but that's really I think what they're responding to is the agoraphobia.
I'm so sorry.
Excuse me.
I love the, what is it? What does he prescribe? No, not what he prescribes him. What he diagnoses him with? Multiple.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Multiple phobia or something like that?
No, it's something funky. Yeah, like I've not heard of that. And that we were talking about that the other day. Like, is that just a DSM-3? I don't know what diagnosis that is.
It was just like he has like multiple phobias or something like that.
Yeah, it was something.
It's like, bro, you're missing the diagnosis. It's borderline.
It was something. I mean, he definitely. Yeah, there's definitely. I could see phobia from agoraphobia, right? There's definitely fear of.
It's multiple.
I mean, it seems like agoraphobia, but he does get out. But he's very I don't know. It looks like agoraphobia, or at least some type of anxiety-based disorder.
Sure, which borderline people can have, but
definitely. So, so he gets his way to Lake Winnipesaukee, right? And he has this interaction, and basically,
Dr. Leo
Marvin,
Dr. Leo, just standing in the street,
and then he just. Could you imagine? Could you imagine being on vacation and you walk out of a grocery store and a client is just yelling your name? I would.
Well, it's how he acts. It's how he would act. Dude, like, get in the car.
I would, at that point, I totally would have gotten a restraining order.
Yeah.
Like what? Why did he get a restraining order? Like that's way inappropriate. That's too much.
I mean, Dr. Leo's response to all of that is appropriate. You know what I mean? That's what's so funny.
Crazy.
I mean, even though he's totally, self-important and, has aggrandizement. Personal aggrandizement.
So we get to this scene, like there's basically Leo Marvin tells him to leave, and he's walking, right? He's walking away, and he's still really scared at this point. He's not gotten to the point. He's overcome getting on a bus.
Yeah, he's overcome the phobias.
Come to there.
Yeah, he's
still scared though. He still has this phobia type, whatever Leo Marvin was calling it. And he's still really scared, but he's gotten over some of the fear just to get to Leo Marvin, right? Mm-hmm. And then Leo Marvin kind of rejects him in a nice way, and he's walking down the street.
Makes a boundary.
And his
I wouldn't say reject.
Comes.
I would say made a boundary.
Well, I think from Bob's perspective, right?
Of course, yeah.
This is going to be rejection.
Yeah.
And so he's walking down the street, and his daughter comes. And to me, this just stands out so much to me. His daughter offers connection and support and understanding. And what happens, and this is probably one of the funniest, there's so many funny scenes, but one of my favorite scenes. What happens is the result of him being tied up on a sailboat and sailing. That is just classic to me. But it's beautiful to me because he's able to overcome this fear. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like because of that connection and that understanding that the daughter had with him. And that's what I love about this movie. The things that I really focus in on throughout my life is that those times when Bob is able to connect and to feel understood, feel seen in a way that's healing, he grows. Like the agoraphobia vanishes throughout the movie.
And the thing that's interesting about Bob and the fun thing that they do is that Bob, in some ways, becomes healing to the family.
Sure.
Because Dr. Leo can't participate in that because his boundaries are being violated and all this. But the family, because he's innocent, and his innocence allows the daughter to grow some in the moment because she connects with Bob in the car. I don't remember what he asks her or something like, "Are you afraid?" And
they talk about being fearful,
very fearful or whatever. And then that's when she's like, "Oh, well, you're approachable. You're easy. Come with me." And that whole scene with the son diving or whatever is great, right?
Yeah,
like he's talking to him because he's acting more scared, so he empowers the child,
which is a follow-up to. I love it because it's a follow-up because he then takes what he learned from her. If I can connect with someone, I can overcome fear. And he doesn't, I don't think, consciously do that.
No, he's doing it. He's playing it. Yeah.
Yeah. But the next scene is they're illustrating once again, hey, if you can connect with someone,
you can overcome fear.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful thing.
And he's the one that's is being afraid, and so the boy is empowered to teach him, which is a strategic. Yeah, it's a strategic intervention actually.
And he's still got his life jacket on.
Great. It's fantastic, right? And so then, so the boy becomes the teacher, which is then empowering him to overcome his fear.
Yes.
And then Dr. Leo sees it from the window, and he's like,
freaks.
"I've got it, Bob. I've got it." And he did it, and everybody else is excited, but because Dr. Leo is, so...
And your heart breaks for Dr. Marvin, right? Because, I think most people probably don't care because he pushes Bob off.
Yeah.
But my heart breaks because you think
he
about
lost
it.
His moment.
That was an important moment for him.
Right, but it's fair enough, right? Because he's being a jerk to his kid the other day who's rushing. Yeah. All right, we're going to do this. Yeah. Instead of being sensitive to his needs.
Which is a really interesting parenting thing because I don't think he's being a jerk. I think there's an insecurity with Dr. Marvin that's pushing that behavior where he's feeling like I'm failing as a father if my son doesn't do this. So instead of saying that, he gets angry and he's like, come on, you can do it, instead of...
Because he's in denial about his own fears.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and that's kind of the narcissistic part of his personality, right?
He's in denial of his own fears. Yeah. And so he's projecting them onto his kid. Yeah. His kid can't have those fears either, which the kid's personality is hilarious. We're going to die. That's going to happen. It's like, well, what's the point?
I wanted to scream out. He was in Hook. He was in What About Bob? He's probably in some other things, but I don't think I've ever seen him again. He was in some good movies.
The Little Kid?
Yeah.
Yeah. But that whole scene was really cool too. I really loved that scene for the boy in the fact that, Bob is this adult, but they're being playful. And, it's escalating Dr. Leo, Richard Dreyfuss, but, they're having this great connecting moment, which, leads up to the moment that you reviewed about Bob, where the mom shows love and connection. And so that is him being soothed past his, not his borderline, but his fears and anxieties.
And I think for me, that's kind of been the, really a characterization of my journey is this idea of how can I overcome some of these fears so that I'm not living and being ruled by the fear and actually be present with my family, which is what I care so much about. And for me, I think that's what resonated. Now, to be fair, this wasn't my first pick. My first pick was another movie, but
we'll do it.
But we, as I was thinking, it's hard for our guests. I get it. It's hard to pick a movie.
Oh, well, you can't pick your favorite. You just have to pick one you want to talk about because there's too many movies to love.
And so I get it. But yeah, this was not my first, and I'm excited for when we do the other one. I'll leave it a secret.
Okay.
And then when we do it, I'll be like, this was my first pick.
I hope you didn't feel pulled or swayed by me.
No, I didn't, because I was vacillating back and forth. Actually, there's like 3 or 4 that I really could have done. But what about Bob? It's
such a great show.
Funny.
It's so much fun.
Yeah.
And it's so ridiculous and fantastic. And yeah, I mean, the thing that is great about it is that Bill Murray is just so lovable and warm.
He plays the character perfect.
But the breakdown but I felt watching the show, I mean, I was irritated by Dr. Leo from the opening scene. But the fact that he just breaks, it's like, Bob just breaks him, and that's therapists need to be broken down is the message of the movie. They need to be discarded and broken down.
I think that there is
from their self-importance.
There is some truth in that to where I think you could, if you're not being aware of yourself as a therapist.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And you're not being really kind of assessing where you're at and being careful that you could just think you know all the answers.
Oh gosh.
Right?
Well,
and that's something that I think
we do a little.
Well, we do.
But
that doesn't mean all therapists
That's
do.
correct.
So yeah, that's why we have billions
of
followers.
Yes.
So, there is a difference, but I think, yeah, it can be easy, right? It can be that easy trap. And you have to really, I think that's part of the job is really looking at kind of inward.
Right. Well, it's like we said in the parenting Q&A question, if you're asking and looking inward at like, where am I messing up? Then you're on the right track. You know what I mean?
Awesome.
And that was a great show, dude. Anything else you want to... Good show.
I don't know. What I would say though is, any questions, and that's the thing, as John and I do our interviews, if you have questions or more questions for us that are spurred on by this episode, feel free to ask. We can do it in our Q&A, or we can do another interview with John and I where we talk about ourselves.
Let us know what you want, people.
But yeah, we'd love it. But it was fun and
good show. Thanks for sharing your history.
I'm excited to interview John.
Michael, thank you for letting us go down memory lane and wander into the deserts of Nevada.
Yes.
With you.
It was fun. It was fun. I should also say I love Star Wars. I didn't mention Star Wars this episode.
I don't know how we managed.
You'd notice John has a Star Wars shirt on, so that
helps. We didn't ask where the birth of love of Star Wars came.
My father loves sci-fi. And so I have always astronomy. I've always loved sci-fi and astronomy.
When did you see the movies first?
Well, I was born when Return of the Jedi. I was born just 2 months before Return of the Jedi.
So you didn't see any of the originals in the theater?
No. I got to see episode 1.
I got to see Return of the Jedi in the theaters. We skipped school.
That's awesome.
On that. My dad took my brother and I out of school. We went to a matinee.
That's cool.
To see Return of the Jedi. I remember thinking like...
Yeah, it came out, I think, May of 83. And I was like, March of 90.
I remember being like, why is my dad having us skip school to go to the movies? I was like, is this happening?
Yep, I grew up on the cassettes. Grew up on the VHS, I should say.
Yeah.
I grew up watching the VHS.
From Hollywood Video.
Yeah. Well, we had them. And, but yeah, I loved I still love astronomy. My dad and I, we had a telescope. So
that's fun.
We'd do astronomy and then just science, astronomy, space, sorry. Anything sci-fi. he would watch. So I like Star Trek a lot.
Did you get? I was going to say my dad and I watched Next Generation.
Yeah. So I watched
Picard,
Next Generation a lot. I've watched the movies a lot. Yes, Make It So.
The funniest Make It So I've ever seen. I was at school in Provo. We had dinner at somebody's house, and I went into their bathroom, and they had this huge picture of Picard standing there saying, "Make it so," across from you sitting at the toilet. It's fantastic. Isn't that great?
I think I need one for my house now.
That's what you sat and you looked at Picard saying, "Make it so." It's fantastic.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
I do not have that in my house. But yeah, that's where the Star Wars came from, just from sci-fi love as a kid. All types of sci-fi shows that I grew up watching.
Nice.
And then I just love Jedis.
We're good?
We are. It was fun.
All right,
thanks,
my brother.
Everyone.
Thanks for listening.
Adios.
Yep.